What happens when a beloved television presenter walks onto a daytime talk show expecting a friendly chat and instead faces a public ambush that spirals into one of the most shocking confrontations ever broadcast live? In just 46 seconds, a simple question about career choices ignites an inferno that exposes the ugly side of television royalty and leaves viewers watching in stunned disbelief as politeness crumbles and true colors shine through. Holly Willoughby arrived at the studio that morning with her trademark warm smile, ready to discuss her recent charity work and upcoming projects. The energy felt different the moment she stepped onto the set. Lorraine Kelly sat in her chair with an expression that wasn't quite welcoming, flanked by panelists Christine Lampard and Giles Brandreth, who exchanged quick glances as Holly took her seat. "Holly, lovely to see you," Lorraine began, her tone carrying an edge that immediately put everyone on alert. "Though I must say, some of us are surprised you found time in your very busy, very important schedule." Holly's smile faltered just slightly. "Well, I'm always happy to be here. You know that." Christine shifted uncomfortably in her seat. The audience, usually buzzing with excitement, fell into an uneasy quiet. "Do I?" Lorraine leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "Just because it seems like these days you only show up when you've got something to sell. A book? A show? A new face cream? What is it today, darling?" The word darling came out dripping with sarcasm. Holly's face flushed, but she maintained her composure. "Actually, I'm here to talk about the Children's Hospital charity campaign. We've raised over £2 million so far, and—" "Oh yes, the charity," Lorraine interrupted, waving her hand dismissively. "How very noble of you. Tell me, is the camera crew following you around for that new documentary about your life? Because that's what this really is, isn't it? Just another opportunity for Holly Willoughby to remind everyone how perfect she is." Giles cleared his throat loudly, attempting to interject. "Lorraine, perhaps we could—" "Perhaps we could what, Giles?" Lorraine snapped, not taking her eyes off Holly. "Let's be honest here. Let's have a real conversation for once, instead of all this fake, sugary nonsense." Holly's jaw tightened. "I don't know what you want me to say. I came here in good faith." "Good faith," Lorraine laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's rich. You know what I think? I think you've become so wrapped up in your own bubble, so surrounded by yes people and publicists, that you've forgotten what real television is about. You've forgotten where you came from." Christine tried again to redirect. "Why don't we talk about the charity work?" Holly was just saying they've raised an incredible amount. "I'm talking, Christine," Lorraine snapped. "Holly can wait her turn. She's very good at making people wait, aren't you, Holly? Very good at keeping people waiting while you perfect your hair and makeup and practice your relatable girl next door routine." The audience gasped. This wasn't playful banter anymore. This was something else entirely. Holly took a deep breath, her hands gripping the arms of her chair. "I don't have to sit here and listen to this." "Oh, don't you?" Lorraine's voice rose. "See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. The moment someone dares to challenge you, dares to ask a real question, you want to run away. You want everything to be sunshine and rainbows and carefully scripted segments where everyone tells you how wonderful you are." "That's not fair," Holly said quietly, her voice shaking slightly. "I've worked incredibly hard to—" "Worked hard?" Lorraine practically shouted now. "You call posting pretty pictures on social media and reading off a teleprompter hard work? Some of us have been in this industry for decades, doing real journalism, real interviews, putting in real hours, not just swanning about in designer dresses looking pretty." Giles stood up suddenly. "Lorraine, this has gone too far. Holly is our guest." "Sit down, Giles," Lorraine barked. "This is my show. My name is on it, and I'll run it how I see fit." Holly's eyes were glistening now, but she wasn't crying. She was angry. "You know what? You're right. This is your show, and you've just shown everyone exactly what kind of person you are. I came here to talk about helping sick children. Sick children, Lorraine. And you've turned it into some kind of personal attack because of what? Jealousy? Bitterness? The studio went completely silent. Even the camera operators seemed frozen. Lorraine's face turned crimson. How dare you? How dare you come onto my show and accuse me of jealousy? I've been doing this since before you were old enough to hold a microphone. And that's the problem, isn't it? Holly's voice was steady now, clear and strong. You can't stand that other people have found success. You can't stand that viewers connect with presenters who actually care about them, who don't talk down to them, who don't use their platform to tear others down. Christine reached over and placed a hand on Holly's arm, a gesture of support that didn't go unnoticed. Maybe we should take a break, she suggested softly. There will be no break, Lorraine said through gritted teeth. Holly wants to have this conversation? Fine. Let's talk about how you've built your entire career on being inoffensive, on never having an opinion, on just smiling and nodding and agreeing with everyone. And at least I stand for something. At least I'm authentic. Authentic? Holly stood up now, her microphone still attached. You call this authentic? Ambushing someone who came here to discuss charity work? Making personal attacks on live television? If this is your version of authenticity, I want no part of it. Lorraine stood as well, moving around her desk. Then leave. Go on. Run back to your perfect little world where everyone worships you and nobody ever challenges you. I'm not running, Holly said firmly. I'm choosing not to participate in whatever this is. There's a difference. And for your information, I've faced plenty of challenges in my career. I've dealt with criticism and setbacks and difficult moments, but I've tried to handle them with grace and dignity, something you clearly know nothing about. Grace and dignity, Lorraine mocked. Look, is that what you call it? I call it being bland. I call it being safe. I call it being boring. Giles stepped between them now, his face serious. Lorraine, stop. Just stop. This isn't you. This isn't what we do here. Get out of my way, Giles. Lorraine pushed past him, moving closer to Holly. You want to talk about grace and dignity? Let's talk about the real Holly Willoughby. The one who throws tantrums backstage when things don't go her way. The one who demands special treatment. The one who thinks she's above everyone else. Holly's voice dropped low, dangerous. You don't know me. You don't know anything about me. And clearly, you don't care to. You've made up your mind based on whatever gossip or nonsense you've heard. I know enough, Lorraine shot back. I know that people like you come and go. Flavors of the month. Here today, gone tomorrow. While people like me, we last. We endure. Because we have substance. Substance, Holly repeated, Ness shaking her head. If this is substance, I'll take being kind any day. I'll take treating people with respect. I'll take actually caring about the message instead of just trying to create drama for ratings. Christine stood up now too, moving to Holly's side. I think Holly's right. This has become something it shouldn't be. Lorraine turned on Christine viciously. Oh, so now you're taking her side? Of course you are. You all stick together, don't you? The pretty young things who think they can waltz in and take over. I'm not taking sides, Christine said calmly. I'm saying this isn't right. We invited Holly here as a guest. We should treat her with basic respect. Basic respect, Lorraine spat. She doesn't respect this show. She doesn't respect what we do here. She thinks she's better than us. I never said that. Holly's voice was firm but measured. I never even implied that. You're the one who started this, Lorraine. You're the one who turned a simple interview into an attack. And honestly, I feel sorry for you. I feel sorry that you're so insecure that you need to tear down other women to feel powerful. The words hung in the air like a bomb. Lorraine's mouth opened and closed, her face contorting with rage. Get out, she finally hissed. Get out of my studio. Get off my show. Gladly, Holly reached up and unclipped her microphone, letting it drop onto the chair. But just so we're clear, I'm not leaving because you told me to. I'm leaving because I have too much self-respect to stay somewhere I'm not wanted. I'm leaving because I won't participate in this circus. And I'm leaving because those sick children I mentioned, they deserve better than this. They deserve people who actually care, not people who use charity as a prop for their own ego. She turned to Christine and Giles. Thank you both for trying. I'm sorry you had to witness this. Christine hugged her quickly. I'm sorry too. This shouldn't have happened. Lorraine moved back to her desk, gripping it so hard her knuckles turned white. This is still my show. You don't get to make some grand exit speech and act like the victim here. Holly turned back one last time. I'm not acting like anything. I'm simply responding to how I've been treated. And everyone watching can make up their own minds about who was in the wrong here. Oh, play to the cameras, Lorraine sneered. That's all you know how to do, isn't it? No, Holly said quietly. What I know how to do is treat people with kindness. Even people who don't deserve it. Even people who go out of their way to be cruel. Because that says more about me than it does about them. She walked toward the exit, her head held high despite the trembling in her hands. The studio audience sat in shocked silence, unsure whether to applaud or gasp or simply sit frozen. Giles followed her a few steps. Holly, wait! She paused but didn't turn around. It's okay, Giles. Really, I'll be fine. This wasn't right, he said loud enough for everyone to hear. For what it's worth, I think you handled this with far more grace than most people would have. Holly gave him a small, sad smile over her shoulder. Thank you. That means a lot. Lorraine's voice cut through the moment. Are we quite finished with the dramatics? Can we get back to actual television now? Holly stopped walking. For a moment, it seemed like she might turn around and say something else. The entire studio held its breath, but instead, she simply shook her head and continued toward the door. Christine walked to the edge of the set, torn between staying and following. Lorraine, I think we need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about, Lorraine snapped. She's gone. Good riddance. Let's move on to our next segment. But there was no moving on. The damage was done. Jatse. The atmosphere in the studio was thick with tension and discomfort. The producers were frantically talking into their headsets. The audience members were whispering to each other, some with phones out, clearly recording or messaging friends about what they'd just witnessed. Giles returned to his seat, but didn't sit down. I'm not sure we can just move on from this, Lorraine. Well, we're going to have to. Lorraine's voice was tight, defensive. What do you want me to do? Apologize? And for speaking the truth? For asking the questions everyone else is too afraid to ask? That wasn't asking questions, Christine said quietly. That was an attack. And you know it. Lorraine's expression flickered, something almost like regret passing across her face before hardening again. This is my show. I make the decisions about who stays and who goes. If she couldn't handle a bit of honest conversation, that's on her. A bit of honest conversation? Giles's voice rose in disbelief. Lorraine, you told her she was bland and boring and only good for looking pretty. You accused her of being fake and using charity for publicity. You basically chased her off the set. That's not honest conversation. That's bullying. The word bullying seemed to strike a chord. Lorraine flinched slightly. I am not a bully. I've spent my entire career championing people, giving them a platform, in supporting them. Then what was that? Christine gestured toward the empty chair where Holly had been sitting. Because it didn't look like support to me. Before Lorraine could respond, a producer rushed onto the set, whispering urgently in her ear. Her face went pale, then red, then pale again. She nodded stiffly, and the producer hurried away. What is it? Giles asked. Lorraine swallowed hard. We need to go to commercial. Now? We just came back from commercial 10 minutes ago, Christine pointed out. Well, we're going again. Lorraine's voice cracked slightly. Right now. The cameras cut away and chaos erupted. Crew members rushed around, producers were shouting instructions, and Lorraine sat down heavily in her chair, suddenly looking much older and more tired than she had minutes before. Giles approached her carefully. "What did they tell you?" She didn't answer at first. He just stared at the empty chair across from her. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Social media is exploding. It's everywhere already. Videos, commentary, outrage. They're calling me names. Terrible names." Christine sat down, not next to Lorraine, but at a careful distance. "What did you expect would happen? You can't treat someone like that on live television and think there won't be consequences." "I didn't mean," Lorraine started, and then stopped. She irritates me. Always so perfect, so polished, so loved by everyone. It's not fair." "So you took your jealousy and insecurity out on her publicly," Giles said bluntly, "and now you're facing the results of that choice." Lorraine's eyes flashed with anger again. "Don't psychoanalyze me, Giles. You don't know what it's like, watching these younger presenters come in and take the spotlight. Watching the network invest more in their shows, their projects. Watching viewers flock to them while treating you like yesterday's news." "So this was about jealousy," Christine said softly. "That's what Holly said, and she was right." "I'm not jealous," Lorraine insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. "I'm just tired. Tired of pretending everything is fine. Tired of playing nice. Tired of watching people succeed while doing half the work I've done." Giles sat down finally, his expression sad. "Lorraine, you're a legend in this industry. You've built an incredible career, but what you did today, that's going to overshadow everything else. People aren't going to remember all the good interviews, all the important conversations. They're going to remember this. They're going to remember how you treated Holly." The truth of his words settled over the set like a heavy blanket. Lorraine put her head in her hands, her shoulders shaking slightly. Christine reached out hesitantly, then pulled back. "You need to make this right somehow." "How?" Lorraine looked up, her makeup smudged now. "How do I make this right? She's gone. Everyone saw what happened. There's no taking it back." "You could start by being honest," Giles suggested. "Admit you were wrong. Apologize. Actually mean it." "On air?" Lorraine's voice pitched higher. "You want me to apologize on air?" "Where else would you do it?" Christine asked. "That's where you attacked her. Juan, that's where you need to make amends." Lorraine stood up abruptly, pacing the small stage area. "I can't. I won't. That would be admitting defeat. That would be humiliating." "More humiliating than what just happened?" Giles raised his eyebrows. "More humiliating than being called a bully and having it go viral worldwide? Because I promise you, Lorraine, that ship has sailed." She stopped pacing, facing away from them. The studio was still buzzing with activity around them. But in their small corner, time seemed suspended. The decision hung in the air, waiting to be made. A production assistant approached nervously. "Lorraine, we need you back on in 30 seconds. What do you want to do?" Lorraine turned around slowly, her face a mask of conflicting emotions. Pride, shame, anger, regret, all warring for dominance. She looked at Giles, then at Christine, then at the empty chair one more time. "What I want," she said carefully, "is to go back in time and handle this differently. But I can't do that, can I?" Neither of them answered. They didn't need to. The production assistant shifted uncomfortably. "Lorraine, 15 seconds." She took a deep breath, straightening her shoulders. "Tell them we're coming back, and I'll address what happened. Briefly." "Are you sure?" Christine asked. "No," Lorraine admitted. "But Giles is right. Everyone already saw it. Pretending it didn't happen would make it worse." They moved back to their positions as the countdown began. 5, 4, 3, 2. The cameras came back on, and Lorraine faced them directly. Her expression was harder to read now, more guarded. Before we continue with today's show, I need to address what just occurred. Holly Willoughby was our guest, and the conversation became heated. More heated than it should have been. I said things that were unprofessional and unkind. She paused, and for a moment, it seemed like she might actually deliver a genuine apology. But then her jaw tightened, and the walls went back up. However, I stand by my commitment to honest, unfiltered conversation on this show. Sometimes that means asking difficult questions. Sometimes that means pushing back when I feel it's necessary. Not everyone will agree with my approach, and that's their right. But this is, and will remain, a show where we speak our minds. Giles and Christine exchanged glances. It wasn't quite an apology, and it certainly wasn't taking full responsibility, but at least it was an acknowledgement. Now, Lorraine continued, her voice firmer, let's move on to our next guest, who I promise will receive a much warmer welcome. The words were meant to be light, perhaps even self-deprecating, but they fell flat. The audience gave a weak, uncomfortable laugh. Nobody seemed quite ready to move on. The ghost of what had happened lingered over the set, impossible to ignore or forget. Christine leaned toward her microphone. I think it's important to note that Holly came here today to discuss an incredible charity effort that's helping children in hospitals across the country. Whatever happened between her and Lorraine, that work is still important and still deserves recognition. It was a small act of defiance, a subtle way of supporting Holly without directly contradicting Lorraine. But it didn't go unnoticed. Lorraine's eyes flashed briefly before she forced a smile. Of course, she said stiffly. The charity work is admirable. I never said it wasn't. You didn't really give her a chance to talk about it, Giles added, his tone mild but pointed. The tension ratcheted up again. Lorraine's smile became fixed, plastic. As I said, let's move on. Our next guest is waiting. But moving on proved impossible. The interview that followed was stilted and awkward, and with both the guest and the panelists seeming distracted and uncomfortable. Every few minutes, someone in the studio would glance at the empty chair, a physical reminder of the confrontation that had just unfolded. The guest, a cookbook author promoting her latest book, tried her best to maintain enthusiasm, but even she seemed rattled by the atmosphere. So, this recipe for lemon drizzle cake is really quite simple, she stammered, looking between Lorraine and the cameras nervously. More, Lorraine barely seemed to be listening. Yes, lovely. And how long have you been baking? I just mentioned that, the guest said awkwardly. 25 years? Right, of course. Lorraine forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Christine, do you bake? Christine, still clearly unsettled, tried to engage properly. I do, actually. I love trying new recipes, especially for special occasions. Do you have any tips for getting that perfect moist texture? The cookbook author seemed grateful for the genuine question and launched into an explanation, but Lorraine cut her off mid-sentence. That's wonderful, Lorraine said, her voice tight. We're running short on time, so let's wrap this up. Where can people buy your book? The guest blinked, surprised. Oh, well, it's available in all major... Fantastic, Lorraine interrupted again. Thank you so much for joining us. Give her a round of applause, everyone. The applause was scattered and confused. The interview had been scheduled for 10 minutes, but had barely lasted 4. The cookbook author gathered her things quickly, clearly wanting to escape the awkward atmosphere. During the next commercial break, Lorraine stood abruptly. I need some air. She walked off set without waiting for a response, leaving Christine and Giles sitting in uncertain silence. This is getting worse, Christine whispered to Giles. She's completely rattled. Can you blame her? Giles whispered back. She knows she made a massive mistake. She's just too proud to admit it properly. A producer approached them cautiously. Is she coming back? We have 2 more segments. Giles sighed. I'll go check on her. He found Lorraine in the corridor outside the studio, leaning against the wall with her eyes closed. Lorraine? She opened her eyes slowly. Don't start, Giles. I don't need a lecture right now. I wasn't going to lecture you, he said gently. I was going to ask if you're okay. The kindness in his voice seemed to crack something in her defenses. Her eyes welled up briefly before she blinked the tears away angrily. I'm fine. Just needed a moment. What happened in there wasn't fine, Giles said carefully. You know that, don't you? Of course I know that, Lorraine snapped, then immediately softened. I don't know what came over me. Seeing her sitting there, so perfect and composed, something just snapped. Jealousy is a powerful thing, Giles observed. It can make us act in ways we never thought we would. I'm not jealous, Lorraine insisted weakly. I'm just tired of what? Being successful? Having your own show? Being respected in the industry? Giles raised an eyebrow. Because from where I'm standing, you have everything. You threw it away because you couldn't stand to see another woman succeed. Lorraine flinched. That's not fair. Isn't it? Giles crossed his arms. Holly came here to talk about charity, about helping sick children, and you turned it into a personal attack because you felt threatened by her. That's exactly what happened. She's not better than me, Lorraine said, her voice breaking slightly. She's not. Nobody said she was, Giles replied. Except maybe you. I'm in your own head. You created this competition that didn't exist and then punished her for it. Lorraine turned away, unable to meet his eyes. What do I do now? You finish the show professionally, Giles said firmly. And then you figure out how to genuinely apologize. Not that half-hearted statement you made earlier. A real apology. And if she doesn't accept it, then you deal with that consequence, Giles said. But at least you'll have tried. And at least you'll have shown some integrity. They stood in silence for a moment before heading back to the studio. The remaining segments passed in a blur of forced smiles and uncomfortable silences. Every person watching could feel that something fundamental had shifted, that the comfortable, friendly atmosphere they'd come to expect from the show had been shattered. When the show finally ended, Lorraine remained seated as the crew began packing up around her. Christine approached slowly, her expression a mixture of sympathy and disappointment. That was hard to watch, Christine said quietly. All of it. I know, Lorraine replied, her voice hollow. Do you, though? Christine sat down in the chair opposite, the same chair Holly had occupied. Because I'm not sure you understand the full impact of what you did today. Everyone keeps telling me how terrible I am, Lorraine said bitterly. Trust me, I get it. It's not about being terrible, Christine corrected. It's about being human and making a mistake. But the mistake isn't the end of the story. How you handle it next is what really matters. Lorraine finally looked up, meeting Christine's eyes. You think I should apologize? I think you should mean it when you do, Christine said. That's the difference. You can say the words, but if there's no genuine remorse behind them, what's the point? I do feel bad, Lorraine admitted. I feel awful, actually. But I also feel angry. Angry that she made me look like the villain. Angry that everyone's taking her side without knowing the full story. What full story? Christine asked. What did she do that justified treating her that way? Lorraine opened her mouth, then closed it. She had no answer because there was no answer. Holly had done nothing except exist successfully, and that had been enough to trigger Lorraine's insecurities. Exactly, Christine said softly when Lorraine remained silent. There is no other side to this story. You attacked someone unprovoked, and now you have to own that. She walked off set without waiting for a response, leaving Christine and Giles sitting in uncertain silence. That was a disaster, Christine said quietly. It was always going to be, Giles replied. You can't put that genie back in the bottle. What's done is done. Do you think she'll actually apologize? Really apologize? Giles shook his head slowly. I think her pride won't let her, and that's going to be her downfall. They sat there, two witnesses to a moment that would be replayed and analyzed for weeks to come. A moment that started with one question and spiraled into something no one could have predicted. A moment that revealed the cracks beneath the polished surface of daytime television, the jealousies and insecurities that simmer beneath bright smiles and scripted banter. Somewhere outside the studio, Holly Willoughby was probably processing what had just happened, surrounded by her team, deciding how to respond or whether to respond at all. But on the set, in the harsh studio lights, the aftermath was still unfolding. Lorraine returned after a few minutes, her face freshly powdered, her expression set. She didn't speak to anyone, just took her seat and waited for the cameras to roll again. When they did, she delivered her lines with mechanical precision, getting through the rest of the show on autopilot. But everyone knew. The crew knew. The panelists knew. The audience knew. And soon, the whole world would know. What had started as a simple interview had become something else entirely. A cautionary tale about letting bitterness and jealousy override professionalism. About the dangers of using a platform to tear others down instead of building them up. About the moment when years of resentment finally boiled over and destroyed whatever goodwill had been carefully cultivated. As the show finally ended and the cameras shut off, for the last time that day, Lorraine sat in her chair, staring straight ahead. Christine and Giles quietly gathered their things and left without saying goodbye. The audience filed out, murmuring excitedly about what they'd witnessed. And in that empty studio, with the lights dimming one by one, the full weight of what had happened began to sink in. Not with dramatic music or tearful realizations, but with the quiet, creeping understanding that some things, once broken, can never be fully repaired. The question wasn't whether this would be remembered. It was already being shared, screenshotted, turned into memes and think pieces and heated debates. The question was what would come next. How this single moment would ripple outward and change everything in its wake. But that's a different story. This one ends here, in the silence after the storm, with an empty chair and the echo of words that can never be taken back.